Hello all fellow watch enthusiasts again. I've got another video for you guys, the white gloves return. I was watching a watch review last week and a guy, his hands were just absolutely butchered. What is it? Is it pedicure or manicure that you get when you get your hands, your fingernails serviced? I don't know, but this guy definitely needed some of that. So I figured I better bust out the gloves. So this is a watch that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but this is the Seiko SBDC031, otherwise known as the Seiko Sumo. And if you are familiar with this watch, you can probably already spot that this one has a different bezel on it. It has a ceramic bezel insert. I bought this watch used from somebody who very clearly did not know how to use a spring bar tool. As you can see from the deep gashes where they clearly missed the mark. Although I suspect it was an attempt to try to get this crafter blue rubber strap on. More on that in a second. It is a very nice strap, but it is tricky to put on. So this is a watch, like I said, I've wanted this for a really, really long time. For one big reason, which is the case is just so unique on this watch. It's by far my favorite feature of this watch, and it's very curvy. It's got just beautiful lines. I like how it's just a smooth, almost a half moon shape. It curves down. It's a very comfortable watch to wear. It reminds me of those really, what are those racing sailboats? I'm not sure what they're, you probably know what I'm talking about. It reminds me of that. It's just got a very unique look to it. You can see the bezel is actually slightly covered by the case. I really like that. That's really unique, and I that's part of the reason why I like Seikos, is they usually follow a little bit different design, and this is one of those watches that really does that, and it follows a different formula than a lot of other dive watches, especially in the entry level to mid-range category. I would consider this more of it's more of a mid-range watch now. Seiko released a new version, which actually has a similar bezel to this in terms of the design. However, I believe it's an aluminum insert, which I'm kind of over. I'm not big on the aluminum insert, not because it's what lower end dive watch bezel inserts use. I don't really care about that. Obviously, ceramic bezels, you can buy them for what, $30-$40 most places. It's not like they're so exclusive. It's just I don't like the look of the flat matte look of aluminum bezel inserts. I used to like that, but I kind of grew out of that. I do like the ceramic, or even sometimes the sapphire coated bezels that some watch uses. But yeah, this was I bought this watch used, like I said, and somebody had already put this bezel insert in there, and it's not my favorite style. I think it's a little boring, but the ceramic, it definitely works well with this watch. It plays really nicely with the domed, slightly domed hardlex crystal. That's something the new Sumo address. They put sapphire in it. However, it's just flat, which is a little disappointing for me. I love the distortion of this watch. I love how that crystal just slowly distorts the dial away. and that's another feature of this watch which I really like. Let's talk about the handset. I really like the handset on this. Seiko, a lot of Seiko dive watches in the Pro Specs lines have gone with the monster hands, or some of the other mid-range watches now have the giant hour marker hand, and it's a big handset. If you haven't watched my Seiko Tuna video, it's that handset. They're not my favorite. They work on the Tuna, but on the other dive watches, they're not my favorite. This handset I really like, along with that seconds hand, that big loomed piece on the end there. I really like that with the needle sticking out. Really reminds me of the Marine Master 300. Of the dial actually just reminds me of that. But it's just a great dial. I really like the dial. I like the handset. I like all the markers. Date at the 3 o'clock. It's just a very, very handsome watch. So this watch came with the stock bracelet from Seiko, which is it's pretty average. I think if they would put better clasp on their bracelets, I think I would like them a lot more. The bracelet itself is fine, but it came with this crafted blue rubber strap, and I have to say I really like it. It's very comfortable. It's got the formed end links, which look really nice, and it really complements the watch very well, I must say. So I would definitely recommend looking at one of these. I think they're around $60 for one of these, and I would say that's pretty pricey for a rubber strap, but I think with the curved, the form-fitted ends, I think it's worth it. Drilled lug holes, which is great. I love watches with drilled lug holes. Never understand why they don't do that more. Makes watch strap changes way easier. Bezel action on this watch is okay. It's easy to turn. Has a bit of a, not the nicest sounding. It's got quite a bit of backplay. Now that might be whoever had this watch before, because they clearly didn't know how to use a spring bar tool, and they also had, I don't know if they had popped this bezel off when they changed the ceramic insert, but the bezel is really loose. You can move it up and down. I don't know if you can see that. You can definitely feel it, but it moves up and down. It doesn't bother me a whole lot, but there is quite a bit of play with the bezel. But it moves and spins freely. And I better make sure I line it up. Oh boy. I like the, I got used to the Citizen ProMaster diver that my last video was on, with the 60 click bezel. And I'll have to be honest, I still prefer that. I think it feels more solid. But anyway, the crown on this watch is signed. It's got the nice Seiko S signed. Has good grip on it. Easy to grip even with these slippery white gloves on. Does not thread very nicely. I will have to say, it just doesn't. This is something that plagues a lot of entry-level and mid-range Japanese watches that I've noticed. You know, it could be the previous owner maybe, you know, stripped them out. I do think people probably aren't gentle enough with these crowns when they're threading them in. Those are very fine threads, so you do have to be very gentle with them. So it's not the best crown. It is solid when you pull it out. It's not like the Orient Triton that I reviewed, I think last year, that has the really wobbly crown. It's nothing like that. Very solid. Change the time, has quick set on the date. standard affair there. Pop it back in. This has the 6R15, which most people are familiar with. Hand wind hacks, mid-range Seiko movement. You can find them anywhere from watches in the $400 or $500 range all the way up to well over $1,000. It's a good movement. I don't have any complaints with it. I've had this movement in other watches, and it's pretty good. It can be accurate. This watch has been decent on the accuracy. I'm not too much of a stickler on that, but good movement. It's a good mid-range movement. So let's try to thread this back in. There we go. Yeah, doesn't thread very nicely. I'll have to say that. Could just be this example, but wish that threaded a little easier. So the case, let's do a measurement here. It wears very nicely. I'll put it on my wrist here in a second. Zero it out. Okay, so I believe it's around a 44 case. And yep, 44.7. That's about right. It wears nicely for me. Again, it's got a very form-fitting case, which makes it very comfortable. It does have some pretty long lugs on it. So, oh boy, this is so tricky to do. How do some people make this look so easy? Pull it off. 52.5 lug to lug. It does have some big long lugs on it. They curve down pretty sharply, so you don't notice it when it's on wrist as much. And then I guess I might as well do a thickness. This watch is not too thick, in my opinion. The bezel sits a little proud of sits above the hardlex crystal, and 13.5 thickness, which is pretty good, I think. 20 millimeter lug width. Some people don't like. I was going to say some people freak out, but that's probably a little dramatic. Some people just don't like that. They think it should be a 22. I'm perfectly fine with the 20 millimeter lug width. It looks fine in my opinion. And it's a very nice wearing watch. So let me put it on for you. I'm wearing a Casio G-Shock. This is the solar and atomic watch. You can see actually there, it just received a signal. I'm very happy with this watch. This is my work watch. I'll make a video on this probably in the near future, if that's something you guys would like to see. So let me put this watch on. Give me a second. Do it off camera so I don't fumble around with it. Very, very comfortable rubber strap. Yeah, I would recommend trying it. I've never been a huge big rubber strap fan, but I had one on my Tuna, really liked it. Had one on my ProMaster Diver, really liked it. I have about a 7.25 inch wrist, and this watch wears very nicely. Hugs your wrist really well, and yeah, with that ceramic bezel, boy, really makes this watch stand out in my opinion. Really complements it well. So I would definitely recommend that as a mod. I'm not a big watch mod person, but that to me is a pretty good upgrade for that. So let me pop it off, and then we'll take a look at the Lume, which shouldn't be any surprises. Give me a second. It's Seiko, so it's going to be have very good Lume. I have not shined this under any lights or anything like that, so you're getting a pretty accurate representation. The ceramic bezel is lumed as well, but it's not nearly as strong as the Lume Bright. So very good Lume. Don't need to spend too much time talking about Seiko Lume. We know how good it is. Okay, so these watches go used around, you're going to pay around $450 for a used one, maybe a little more. The older ones, which don't have the Prospex X on them, which a lot of people do not like. I will be honest, I don't care for it either, but it's not the end of the world. They just say scuba, the older ones, and those are starting to go for a lot of money. People like the aesthetic of that a lot more than the Prospex emblem there, and I can see that. That's understandable. I think the new ones go for around 600, somewhere in that region. They're definitely, I would say it's a good value around $500. I think getting up above that, I think there's some other newer contenders, especially from Seiko, which I think would be a little more appealing to me. But for me, this watch is all about the casework. It's just so unique. That bezel, how it kind of flutes up, looks like a cupcake kind of. That's the best way I could use to describe it. It really is something different. The polishing's really nice. I can zoom in. This watch has been used. Just a little attention to detail. There's a little edge here which is brushed, and then it's polished on the bottom, and then it's polished on the top. Top of the lugs are polished or brushed very nicely, even with previous owners' attempts to scrape that off with who knows what screwdriver, chisel, by the looks of it. And then the back of the watch has the Kanandawa wave, famous wave that Seiko puts on all their dive watches, which is always a nice touch. Screw down case back. This is a JDM watch, which doesn't mean a whole lot these days by the looks of things, which is fine. Some models are different. Some models are a little more difficult to obtain. You know, you have the Seiko Alpinist, some of the other JDM watches, which are they're pretty easy to buy from U.S. sellers. And then you have some of the more some of the Tunas and some of those other JDM watches. Those are not as easy to buy from non-Japanese dealers. So yeah, this is a very good watch. So again, this would be I guess you would call this a second generation, if you want to say that. The first one did not have the Prospex logo, and then the latest, the third generation Sumo has a flat sapphire crystal, different bezel insert. It looks similar to this, but it is not ceramic, and I think it has a Cyclops too, which I'm not a big fan of. But anyway, there you have it. That's the Seiko Sumo. Those are my takes on it. It's a very interesting watch. If you've never owned one, I would recommend it. They're very unique. They're not the run-of-the-mill dive watch. They're definitely their own thing. Definitely check it out on a nice rubber strap like this, Crafter Blue. Otherwise, I would recommend probably upgrading the bracelet to something, strap code, something like that. So anyway, there you have it. Thanks for watching.